Hello, my name is Esther Moon, and I will be presenting my paper, UPA, Tackling Realism in the Era of Modernism. Essentially, I am aiming to analyze the impact of UPA's role in animation history, challenging Disney's adherence to realism in a time where animators craved experimentation. The company grew to prominence during and after World War II, and was known for their distinct experimentation with various forms in animation, from the visual style to the content of their films. Essentially, they were stylistically isolated from Disney Studios, as that company favored a realistic approach. While there is no definitive form of modernism, a general interpretation of art in the 20th century, its influences in America can be traced from European Cubism. The impression of modernism was amplified in the context of World War II. And the three distinct highlights of this era can be represented with the most famous pieces. And ultimately, UPA's distinct style reflects that of the Precisionists in particular. As with Precisionism, artists tended to remove the subject matter in their art, thus deviating away from Cubism, as the geometric planes and shapes stood out on its own as the artwork itself. Now, with the birth of UPA, it originated from artists from Disney Studios. Many were disgruntled for their refusal to credit animators and explore other forms of animation, and the key leaders originating from this conflict was Steven Bisous, Zach Schwartz, and David Hilberman. Many animators were also unemployed and drafted into World War II, and such animators would have to become more economically feasible over live action while limiting it to stylized graphics, laying a foundation for UPA's eventual signature. According to their creative directors, animation would come to adopt a new visual language. The necessity to create low-budget wartime training films served as a catalyst in developing their modernist flair. After the war, UPA collaborated with Columbia's Screen Gems when their government contracts diminished, creating Fox and Crow, Mr. Magoo, and Gerald McBoing. These films exhibited more mature themes and were represented with a more explicit meaning. Many critics emphasize that Disney merely imitates realist cinema, ignoring the subjective virtues of animation. However, these criticisms are rooted in the notion that classical cinematic space equates to realism. The studio distinctly portrays the differences between live-action and animation cinema with mutual affection images, where the subject of transformation is crucial to this notion in the most charged Disney scenes, a moment of animalism in light of humanized characters. However, notable critics are divided on the subject, such as with Barbara Deming criticizing Walt Disney's apparent artlessness. Now, with Disney and the studio's realistic implications, he developed the use of a multi-plane camera and a hybrid art form, which is notable with his film The Song of the South, known to be relatively unsuccessful and politically incorrect. David Fisher argues that Disney only depicted reality through a romanticized lens. And ultimately for UPA, in contrast to Disney's work, their overemphasis on their modernist style would become a critical factor to their demise. They were only really successful based on their contract with Columbia Pictures and the talented artists of UPA. And when these factors compromised, this led to the gradual decline of the company. Furthermore, internal conflicts between the leaders of the company, such as with John Hubley and his co-workers, would also lead to the dismantling of the company. Henry G. Saperstein would bring UPA to an end with Columbia's distribution deal. He transformed the company into an American distributor for films. So how did Disney Studios sustain its growth and greatly outlive the company that grew out of its apparent flaws? Well, it did conform to postmodernism and the use of technology to compete with a changing society of arts and culture and a growing mainstream consumer culture. This is evident with Disney's Magic Kingdom. DreamWorks would eventually buy UPA in 2012, receiving its licensing rights and library of cartoons. In conclusion, UPA grew out of creative unrest and a distrust for the mainstream animation culture of the modernist era. They established a unique mark in the art of animation for audiences and creators. Its eventual downfall would ultimately result from a lack of financial support and the conflicts creators encountered with one another. However, UPA had a profound impact on the world of animation with the introduction of unique forms and experimentation, particularly under times of restriction.